This podcast is a 98 Studios production.
Today's the day, baby.
Today's the day.
Today's the day.
Today's the motherfucking day. Today is the day.
Today's the day.
Today is the day.
Today's the day.
What up, everybody? Welcome back to Today's the Day with Zack Anderson. I'm excited for today's podcast. Every time I sit down with someone, something about it's exciting. This one is because A, Eric was introduced to me by one of my favorite people on the planet, Bucket, and B, we've only been sitting together hanging out for like 10 minutes, and you're already one of the chillest, coolest people we've had in the studio. So first and foremost, as always, Eric, thank you for taking time. I know how busy you are. We've been trying to schedule, and we rescheduled on you, and you've been the best to make it work. So thank you for being here. I'm stoked to chat. We're going to have some fun.
I agree. Thanks for having me.
Beautiful.
Ready to be here.
Let's do it. So, Mr. Eric Kandell, walk me through kind of who you are. Give me your story. Let everyone know who you are that don't already know you. We already have a ton of connections. I have a million questions about your story because I got a little glimpse into it. And then I've got questions as well outside of your story, just advice, because I think you have a very unique perspective and I think it could be valuable. And you're a father of multiple kids. So give us your story. Where are you from? What's like your life journey to end up where you're at right now? And then I've got some advice I want to get from you.
Okay. If I go down too many different tangents, just bring me back.
You do it. I will.
I think I heard you say, who am I? You mentioned father. Love being a dad. One of the coolest jobs. It is a job. Business guy, entrepreneur. I'm from the Midwest. I grew up in Ohio.
What part of Ohio?
Kent.
Where's that?
It's about half an hour from the Football Hall of Fame in Canton. A lot of people have heard of Canton.
Yep.
It's about an hour from Cleveland.
Yep.
Kind of claim to fame. This may date me a little bit, but I think people can tell I'm maybe a little bit older than you are, Zach. But,
I don't know about that.
There's a university called Kent State University in the town that I grew up. And back during Vietnam, the National Guard came in. This is for you history buffs out there. And they shot 4 students. The U.S. National Guard. Yeah, there was riots, and they were supposed to be these peaceful riots. And I don't want to screw up history, but that is the other claim to fame to where I grew up. And
that is wild.
You guys have probably been to Buffalo Wild Wings.
Yeah.
That's from my hometown. It used to be called BW3, Buffalo Wild Wings. And so... Not that any of that is important, but you want to know where I'm from?
I like that.
The Midwest.
I stayed in Cincinnati for a little bit.
Okay, see, I've never been to Cincinnati.
I like
but
Cincinnati.
I know they have good chili, or apparently they put chili on their hot dogs in Cincinnati.
They actually, yeah. That's actually a very good point. At the baseball games, they do.
Now, what took you to Cincinnati?
Work.
I shouldn't be interviewing you.
Work, yeah. Don't interview me. No one wants to hear about me, but work. Yeah,
cool.
I like. It's a fun state, fun city too.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I came out to Utah like many of your guests probably on this podcast. I did the whole Mormon Mecca.
Mm-hmm.
Came out to BYU. Loved my time at BYU. Didn't know what I wanted to do when I went there. Both my parents were entrepreneurs. My mom owned some daycare centers. My dad had this ceramic business. Everyone thought I would go take over my dad's business. I had no interest at all in doing ceramics. Came out to BYU, served a mission, and
where'd you serve?
I served in Chile.
Okay.
In Antofagasta, Chile. It's the second driest desert in the world after the Sahara Desert. It's called the Atacama Desert. Desolate, but amazing people. Nothing. I mean, there's the ocean, there's a bunch of dirt, and there's the mountains heading up to the Andes. And it's dry and desolate, but amazing people.
There you go. I love that.
Came back, graduated, and started to get my first taste of the sales game, making some money, and a lot of things happened after that. So I'm sure we'll get into it.
Yeah.
Did I miss anything?
No, it's perfect.
Okay.
Well, actually, yeah, one thing. What was your household like growing up? What was your family life like when you were small, living out in Ohio? Yeah. Like, what was the family life like, the family dynamic?
Man, awesome. Mom was a convert to the LDS church. My dad was Catholic. I have one sister, so we were really close. And unlike most of the property here in Utah, where I grew up in Ohio, I didn't realize this as a kid until I moved out here. It was just normal to me. But literally, it was like Tom Sawyer, Huckleberry Finn, Norman Rockwell painting, however you want to call it. It was like amazing. We have ponds and donkeys and ducks. I tell people I grew up on a farm, but our farm didn't produce anything. But it was growing up like in a storybook. You'd walk out the door in the morning.
More of a petting zoo.
Exactly. A petting zoo. Yeah. I think at one point we had pigs. But again, why? Just, I don't know. We had the land and I must have been my mom or my dad. I'll have to ask them, like, why did we have all these animals?
Yeah.
But I loved growing up in Ohio. I would walk out the door in the morning, come back covered in mud, and who knows, we were gone for 8 to 10 hours. Nobody cared.
Yeah.
It was different back then. But
I love that.
Great family.
I love that. So then you mentioned your like journey. You get a taste of sales and making money. Was that to spoil the whole like ending that we're gonna go dive deep into? I assume because it's probably a journey. Was that mortgages out the gates? Like you got into mortgages. You started like what was
That's
your?
where I first saw. So here's the backing back up to Ohio. So I don't know if you're born this way, if I was born this way, or what. But in my personal situation, and my parents tell me these stories all the time. They're like, we always knew you were going to be a sales guy. And well, why? And they're like, well, when you were like in 6th grade, you went and bought toothpicks, what, $1 for 100 toothpicks. Then you'd go and buy cinnamon oil at the candy shop. I'd soak these toothpicks. I'd go to school. I'd sell them for like 10 cents a toothpick.
Let's go.
And I'd make money. No one ever taught me that. I just, somewhere along the line, I did it. I also would plant vegetables as a kid. Seeds cost nothing. My parents probably bought the seeds. And then I'd go to the end of the driveway and I'd sell these vegetables. But where I first realized like the power of money. So I told you my mom had daycare centers growing up. Well, during the summer when the kids were not in school, the older kids that would normally be in school while their little siblings were at daycare, they would come to our house for day camp. And that's the other reason why we probably had the petting zoo, the big pool, all these ponds. There was fishing lessons, swimming lessons. Well, at the end of the day, it's beating down hot. You remember Cincinnati, everyone's just humid as heck. It's sweaty. Well, I'd go down to the local Kmart or whatever, and I would buy those, those popsicles that you cut the top off and you just suck the ice out of them. They're like igloos or icy
Otter Pops.
Otter Pops. I don't know what they were called then, but I would buy a box of 100 Otter Pops. I remember it was $10. So I'm like, okay, that's 10 cents an Otter Pop. I would freeze these things because the day camp happened to be at my house, so I had a little bit of an advantage.
Yeah.
I'd come out at the end of the day. There's like 15 minutes before the bell rang, and the vans would take everybody back to these daycare centers, and I would sell them for 25 cents. So every time I spent $10, I sold out the box of popsicles. I'd make 25, and at 11, 12 years old, you're like, bro, I just made $15
in a day. Yeah.
And so I don't just over time. So anyhow.
So to answer your question that you asked, because right before we were just talking, like, I wonder how it would have stacked up in door. You would have kicked ass. Like,
what I have?
Not everyone is built like that. Not everyone is born like that. I was not born like that, and I really struggled in door-to-door to start. You would have stacked up just fine. You would have
missed
kicked
the
ass.
boat. Well,
maybe
I
not.
appreciate you.
Maybe you didn't miss the boat.
You never know.
If you get bored one day and you want to knock some doors, let us know.
You know what?
We can get you set up.
Let's do it.
Yeah, we can get you
We'll
set
come
up.
back and I'll be like, no, look at middle-aged. I went out and knocked the doors. I freaking beat these kids up and down the street.
I there's a few that I'd put up against you, but not many. I think
Nice.
you'd pace with everyone.
So I'm at BYU, and I remember first sales job. I'm sitting in a garage, just dirty, nasty. I don't know if we can say white trash these days. If we can't, you can edit it out.
For sure.
We called it the white trash house, and we had this boss. He would advertise on AM radio, and he had these like starving student coupon books. Now they're all fancy. They look like credit cards and stuff. This thing was like stapled together in his garage with duct tape around the end. And we would cold call on a straight up, push button phone. And we'd say, hey, did you hear us on, $9.95 K-Bear or whatever it was? We're selling, anyhow, we would sell these coupon books for $40. They would get on the phone and call the driver, probably driving around in some freaking windowless van. Hey, go to this address on this street. They're buying a coupon book for $40. Well, every time we sold one of these coupon books, the dude would just hand us a $20 bill. So some nights you'd sell, 5, 6 of these things. And as a college student, at least back then, I'd walk home with $130, $140 in cash all under the table. Again, that's when I was like, man, I just really want to sell stuff.
Yeah.
Mortgages were my first real
quote unquote real gig.
Quote unquote. That's right.
So you've been bred to go and do sales. And then how did you're at BYU. What were you majoring in at the time?
Business.
And then how did you get introduced to the mortgage world? And then also I'm excited to go and talk about like the mortgage world's been nuts.
Yeah.
I'm 26 years old. So I didn't even probably know what mortgage meant 8 years ago, 9 years ago in high school. I wouldn't have known what that meant. But like since then, and now I bought a house back in 2020 and like I've watched what's happened. Thank God I bought one at that point.
So you've got a rate
right
down
now.
in the low
like,
threes,
yeah,
probably?
I'm like 2.9. Yeah,
Nice.
I'm sitting good. But then watching everything, I'm like, this is crazy. And it's crazy how many things, because even my industry gets impacted by interest rates. Anything goes and gets impacted. And then you look at mortgages in general, it's crazy. So I'm excited to go and kind of hear your outlook and the journey of how that's been. Because I imagine that it's like, it can be catastrophic when things happen in that industry, or it can be like things fly off the shelves. When
Feast or
interest rates.
famine.
Yeah.
I grew up being told you've picked an industry that's feast or famine,
Yeah.
and we'll get into it, but the feasts have been amazing.
Yeah.
Famines, if you do it right, it's okay. You know,
Yeah.
you can survive them, and you can step into some other stuff. But yeah, we'll get into it.
Cool. So what was the introduction to mortgages? And what was like at what point in college was that? Was that like, okay, you found it and you totally deviated and that's where you went? Or did you go get your business degree and like, okay, I'm going to apply this
Yep.
to this? Or what was the situation there?
Great question. So I'm going to BYU. I'm your typical BYU student, return missionary, checking the boxes and doing everything the right way. And I was introduced to this guy named Will. Was like an enigma. The legend. A lot about what Will is legendary, but we were also great friends for many years, so I can also validate almost all of it. Part that I don't know if it was real or not. The legend was he got called on his LDS mission to Nevada, to Las Vegas, but he was an addicted gambler, whatever the right way to say that is.
Perfect.
So that made him a little mysterious. Okay, he lives in Provo. Apparently, he jumped the fence at the MTC. I think they just let you out these days if you don't want to go. But back when we served missions, man, it was locked down. You want to get out, you got to like sneak out at night. So
It's like jail.
like jail.
Okay. But he'd get out to go to the casino if he had to.
Well, his whole thing is he was afraid to go on his mission because he's like, there's just no way I'm going to stay out of these casinos. And so he leaves his mission. And he had a red NSX. I'm not a car guy at all, but at the time it was like a Corvette looking car or some fancy car. Owned his own house. Now the guy was from Georgia. No grass, never turn on his sprinklers. But there was something about him. You're like, wait a second, the guy. What do you mean he's making all this money? He didn't graduate from college. I didn't know that was possible.
Yeah.
He's got his own car. He's got his own house. He's making all this money. He had a boat. He was always, so I want to know this guy. Like, I want to get to know him better. I was introduced to him.
This dude is a legend.
He's a legend to this day.
Legend.
Unfortunately, he's passed away. I don't know if we'll get into that story, but legendary. And so we became really good friends. And somewhere along the line, the mortgage industry these days is highly regulated. Compliance is everything. But when I got into the mortgage world back then, didn't need to have a license. No background check. You didn't even need to know what a mortgage was. I probably didn't know what a mortgage was either. Happened to be that where he grew up in Georgia, he got into the mortgage world with some church leaders that, he grew up LDS, and they just focused on veterans. So people that had served in one of the four, branches of the armed services, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. So when I met him, he's like, yeah, I do mortgages for veterans. So, okay. So fast forward, I have my very first time selling mortgages with him. I'm in a basement. I'm on a cell phone when there's no office phones or anything. They gave me this script, and I remember I had a Excel spreadsheet that had been printed out with just a bunch of names and phone numbers. It happened to be Layton, Utah, because there's an Air Force base up there, Hill Air Force Base.
Yep.
And he's like, okay, here's basically what you're going to do. You're going to call people up, find out what their interest rate is. Interest rates are lower today than they have been because the Fed had been cutting rates at the time, and you're going to offer them a refinance. I'll keep it simple for your viewers.
Yeah.
But I get on the phone. This is a legend about me. Apparently, this was true also. 2 or 3 dials in, I'm talking to this sergeant or corporal or somebody other, and Will and his partner at the time, Alan, say they heard me say to the guy, well, you know what, Mr. Smith, I've been doing this a really long time, and that's probably some of the biggest monthly savings I've ever seen in a refinance. Like, of course I would do this if I were you. And then somehow I seal the deal, close it up, and I hang up the phone, and they're like, dude, what do you mean? You've been doing this for like 30 minutes. That was freaking key that you just told this guy to know it for a long time. And it wasn't even, it was probably somewhat misleading, but it wasn't, I mean, he was saving a lot of money.
It wasn't vindictive.
Anyhow, I wasn't like misleading him or anything that. One of my favorite movies growing up, this is where I start going sideways, so pull me back in, was Boiler Room.
Okay.
And
I love Boiler Room.
Oh, it's way,
I haven't seen it in so long.
My goal was to have a sales floor like Boiler Room, be a sales manager like Vin Diesel, but we were, of course, going to do it compliantly in the right way. Boiler Room was, it's Hollywood, and they kind of take advantage of people. But anyhow, I got my paycheck. It had a freaking comma in it. I remember it was like $1,200. This was a while ago. And
you're big baller on campus.
Was balling. And the thing is, I could not wait to walk to the teller it was maybe Wells Fargo at the time. I haven't banked with them forever. And I'm like almost kind of giddy with excitement. Like, oh, this teller, not only is she good looking, but when she sees this check, dude, it's game on.
Yeah.
Because I had never had that much money. And it took me like an hour to do it. And so that is when I was hooked. I was like, wow, I can make $1,000 in an hour's worth of work. Like, tell me more.
Yeah.
Your other question. unlike many, I thought if I didn't graduate from college, there's no way I was going to be successful. It's just kind of what I grew up believing.
Mm-hmm.
So I was fortunate enough. My parents helped pay for school. I wasn't a starving college student. So Will and I stayed friends, very good friends, like best of friends. We were at each other's weddings, but I did not do a whole lot more in the mortgage world because I didn't need to. I didn't have that I had the drive, but I didn't have the pain of not being able to make my bills. So I graduated and then I got into mortgages, but I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, no, that does. That's perfect. I love that's like the perfect intro story. And it's like sales is my favorite thing in the world, and it's a total art form as well. And like I love talking to people, especially from different industries, because we have such a baked language in door to door that it's like it's just almost repetitive. But you talk to other people, very high caliber salespeople, and it's like there's so many parallels. And sales is an art form; it's not a science, but it's like there are just principles, and one of the biggest ones: whoever's most certain wins. And by communicating, I've done this for a really long time. And you don't see savings like this often. You're just letting him know how certain you are. It's a better situation than he's in. And you were more certain than he was.
Tell me that again. He's who's most certain.
Yeah, whoever's most certain in the conversation wins the conversation every time. And I love that. That's so entertaining. You're like a purebred salesperson, like out the womb. So then after you graduate, you were blessed, your situation was awesome. Like what at that point in time, you can take yourself back to that point in time. What's like the view to go and build your dream life? Were you someone where you had this idea of like, this is my dream life, this is how I'm going to go get it? Because obviously it probably didn't work out exactly that way. Or were you more of like, I'm kind of going with the flow, things are working so far? And where did you go from there? Like, how'd you take action on that vision if you did have one?
So yes, I had a dream. So backing up just a little bit, my mom reminds me of this story too. I had never seen homes like the homes up at Sundance, the ski resort. And so, my mom comes out with me as a freshman, get me out to BYU. And I remember at the time there was this tram that went up above Bridalveil Falls and we were driving through Sundance and she reminds me, and I do remember feeling this. I don't remember saying it, but she says, Eric, we always knew you were going to accomplish something and be great at something because we're driving through Sundance and you say, hey, Mom, one day I'm going to have houses like this. And she's like, I just rolled my eyes and like, oh, sure. Because where we grew up in Ohio, nobody had houses like that.
Yeah.
And so I did have a dream. I wanted more.
Yeah.
Not because I wasn't happy. Money isn't what brought happiness. I always just wanted to win more. I wanted something more. And so I graduate. It wasn't until life gave me, I'm going to use this word lightly because it wasn't real painful, but I had to have like a catalyst. And so I graduated from BYU. Wasn't dating anybody at the time, and the whole kind of LDS Mormon culture was, well, you better not leave Utah or you're doomed for bachelorhood forever.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, I'm going to stay in Utah because I gotta meet somebody. A lot of my buddies had gotten married in college like they do out here, and they were going to do investment banking in New York, and I didn't want to do any of that stuff. And so I was really good friends with Will. Remember, I told you I had a boat. So my days after college for 3 months, I think I graduated in April. And then until late summer, we're wakeboarding every day. This is when you could actually wakeboard on Utah Lake. There wasn't dead carp everywhere. I mean, boats were always out there.
Yeah.
We're cruising around what we thought was the cool places in Provo at the time. And I remember one day, and we're still selling loans, but at the time we're selling loans the way Will liked to sell loans, in bathing suits, in his basement. No, because on the phone, unlike you guys that go door to door, we can be whoever we want on the phone. It's one of my favorite scenes from Boiler Room. I forget where, but Vin Diesel's telling, he's like, look, you can be whoever you want on the phone.
Yeah.
Because nobody knew that I was this, young, inexperienced. I had bright red hair at the time before my hair changed. And they didn't know. As far as they were concerned, I was some 6 foot tall, dark, handsome stud that was selling mortgages. And I remember, so I was fine selling out of a basement in a bathing suit. Well, I'm behind Will's boat one day, and we took our cell phones everywhere because at the time, that's where all of our leads were coming to our cell phone. I remember I'm riding, boat turns off. I'm like, what are you guys doing? I'm out there floating. He's like, dude, the phone rang. Well, it happened to be my dad. True story. Happened to be my dad on the phone, and because he must have had my business line, which I call it my business line, right? It was a cell phone, but people thought we were in this big old office. And so I get in the boat, I'm talking to him, and he's like, I paid for your Mormon mission. Remember, my dad's not LDS. Paid for you to go to this Mormon school. You're on a boat 4 months after graduation. You're wakeboarding. Here's the deal. It's September 1. So this was August. And he goes, no more car insurance is being paid for. You're getting your own health insurance. We're not helping with your rent. And it wasn't like I was afraid because I was making money, but I kind of got the wake up call, like, oh, snap.
Yeah, it was like
Dude, we got to start doing like real work,
yeah.
not just making 10 grand a month under the table. And so that triggered some conversations about, let's get out of your basement. Let's go boiler room. I want cubicles. I want to load this with my buddies. And then things started to really take off. But
Dude,
if
that's
it
so
weren't for
fun.
the call from my dad, maybe I'd have become a professional wakeboarder. I don't know.
Hey, you know who's really good at wakeboarding is Bucket.
Oh, yeah?
Did you know that?
I did not.
Like weirdly good. Very,
Wow.
very good.
We'll have to go.
Yeah, you guys, not me. I'm not a good
No?
wakeboarder, but I'll go. I'll sit on the boat. I'll drink a drink, hang out. I'll surf. I won't wakeboard.
Nice.
No, that's awesome. And one of the questions that I have for people, there's like, as you go and you listen, what I've learned is as you go and you listen to anyone's story, there's two defining moments in people's lives. One's a breakthrough and one's like a crossroad, and sometimes they intersect a little bit. And conversations like that, although it's not like your life is getting ripped out from under you, you are in this situation where you're so comfortable. It sounds like, and the way that I'm interpreting it is you're so comfortable and it's so good. Like there's nothing wrong with it that you could have just continued to do that. But then something disrupted that and caused you to go and completely change the way you were thinking about it, which is so cool. And then you also mentioned something that's really cool as well. You're like, I love that you keep bringing up Boiler Room. I need to go watch that movie again. But it's like, dude, I want to do this thing. I want to have all my buddies in here. I want to be like, what was the driving force behind you always wanting to do more? Was it like it's a very introspective thing to think about. Do you think it was like a sense of significance that you were craving? Was it a sense of like achievement and accomplishment? Was there a lacking, not that you weren't happy, but was there like a hole you were trying to fill? Or was it literally just like, dude, I want to see how big I can do this? Was it a competitive, like what was the driving force as you got into this? Because this was Will's thing, right?
Yeah.
But it sounds like you were probably the one that pushed the needle to get this thing into what it turned into eventually, which we'll go through obviously, but like to the next level, which takes a driving force. I'm really curious what that is because
those are all really good questions. And I am seeing myself get introspective here. Probably a little bit of all of it. Definitely life has taught me, and we'll get to some crossroads that I've hit later in life that might not have to do a whole lot with business, but there was no doubt some desire for external validation. Like, I don't know if that's a man thing.
No, it's a human need.
Human need. I loved praise and accolades from a young kid, from sports I did in high school to, I liked another story about myself that because I was making money, I remember back in the day, there was this show on MTV Cribs where these rappers would like deck out their cars. And there was, I don't know if you guys have seen, but spinners.
Spinners? Oh, yeah.
I may have been the first white dude in Utah to have spinners.
Let's go.
Right?
You're representing Ohio
I was
bro.
ripping.
Let's go.
So back to your questions, definitely some validation needs.
Yeah.
I always just liked to internally, I felt proud about myself if I accomplished certain things. Not, I need more money than this guy, or I need the blue ribbon and not the yellow ribbon or whatever. But
just growth.
There was, inside, it just felt like, okay, my hard work's paying off.
Yeah.
And then I love elevating those around me. And when I saw how much money I could make, I literally wanted to go and show my buddies
how to do it.
And if I could take a little bit of an override, that's really what got me to understand, I can build this thing. And you nailed it. I always, to this day, Will was the visionary. I would have done something. Maybe it would have been door to door. Maybe it would have been pest control. I don't know.
Yeah.
Fortunately for me, mortgages turned out to be very, very good. But it was Will who had this vision of, hey, we can sell these loans to veterans. I think it was my education at school and some of my business classes, but ultimately just that drive that I really can't describe where it came from growing up.
Yeah.
That we need to do more. Selling loans, 2 or 3 of us out of your basement's great, but dude, I want more.
Yeah.
And when I leave here today, I'm wondering where that came from. I don't know. Because I on one hand, I want to tell people, look, you're either born with it or you're not. I've got a really good business partner now in a completely different industry than mortgages. And he always says, you know what? I don't have much, but I have it. And that's like his tagline. And really, when you look at him, you're like, he always just seems to have the it factor. And when he touches something, it just works.
Do you know, can I speculate on that? I think what it is, and who knows, I have a lot to still figure out. And the reason I asked the question before I go into that, and I'll circle up as well, is it's really cool to understand driving forces and also where it aligns with human needs, because none of them are like all your human needs of significance and growth, and none of them are ever wrong. But in different seasons of life, it's probably also changed. And I'm excited. The reason I asked that question is because later that we get in your story, I want to go and compare in my own head of like, okay, where'd they change? Because everyone's just trying to figure life out. And when I find mentors, like I want to go and learn like in what phases of life and when you're trying to get a certain outcome or a certain desired outcome, what motivating factors are like the forcing factors here and which ones are kind of put to the side. And in that point in time, it's like significance, growth, those needs were all being met. And it was probably like addicting in a good way.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And like, because people ask me this all the time, my job specifically is I go find an 18-year-old, whether they're from a silver spoon family, whether they're totally broke, never had a dad, whatever it may be. I train them up, I send them out. They only make money when they produce revenue, and that's our job. And as much revenue as they can go produce, they make. And it's the coolest thing in the world because it really is. It's like addicting. And it's like, that's the most exciting thing for me is that. And everyone always asks me, like, well, like, what does it take? Are you like born with it? Are you not born with it? Et cetera, et cetera. Like, is it a certain personality trait? What is like it? I think is what they're talking about. I think all it is knowing that you're not going to quit if you start, because that translates in a lot of different ways. And it's just not quitting, because you actually can't beat someone who doesn't quit, regardless of the industry, regardless. Now, some people probably have a different baseline of talent and they're born with it plus some. Like you're probably born with it plus some. But at the end of the day, people who don't have very much and maybe they don't start out the best, but they end up the best, it's just because they don't quit.
Yep.
And I think it's I think that's really, really cool.
You've already figured it out, because I've been around twice as long as you in every industry I've been in. Even if we're not talking about money, revenue, the person that works the hardest, works the longest. Yeah, working smart is important, but I would take a hard worker all day long over an okay smart guy.
Yeah.
All day long. And it reminds me, another business partner that I had, he was one of my loan officers. And you talk about this, they would make their revenue. What I loved about sales, I got paid what I was worth.
Mm-hmm.
Like my first job ever, we skipped that. But when I was back in Ohio in high school, I went and got a job at Wendy's. And true to my nature, I feel like I was the best burger flipper. I was the best cashier. I was trying to be, I don't know, we used to call it teacher's pet, but like I wanted the manager to pick me as employee of the month every month. And I get pissed off if I wasn't, because I'm like, I know I'm better than old Carl over here.
Yeah.
But I also realized that everybody needed their, pat on the back. But the problem was, even though I outworked all these other yahoos, I didn't make any more.
Yep.
And then when it was like, wait, there's no cap on what you're going to pay me. Will, if I go do 10 loans next week, you're going to pay me 10 grand. Boom. And so as I'm hiring my friends, my good business partner, buddy, Kevin Galbacini, maybe we'll get him on here one day, way cooler than I am. He told me he went and he was working in for the Ensign Group, I think out in California. It's like a big LDS-owned skilled nursing facility.
Mm-hmm.
And he told me, he's like, dude, I'm like their best turnaround guy. Anytime a nursing facility wasn't performing well, they'd send in Kevin. He'd go change the staff, clean the facility up. And he's like, Eric, I would take these facilities in Northern California from losing millions of dollars a year to profiting millions of dollars a year in 18 months. Guess what? I still can't make any more money. And I know how much more money. And he's like, and I always thought back to Flagship Financial was the name of the company at the time. I always thought back to working for you. And what I loved so much about it is the harder I worked, the longer I worked, the more I made. And so he ended up quitting. And then we went and started our own business together where we manage and run nursing homes together. And it was because he also got that taste for two things. One, I don't want to cap on what I can make. If I can make more, then I want the house to share more of the more.
Yeah.
And then I think I treated my employees well, always have. I love the whole idea of company culture. I'm sure you do this awesome since you're recruiting these kids from all over the world. Like, money's great, but unless they're in charge, they need to be working for somebody that they respect, that they want to hang out with, that want to be around. So, anyhow, yeah,
No, 100%.
That's what I love about sales. There's no cap.
No, that's like, and recruiting people to sales. I've gotten more bold with it as time goes on, because it's so cliche in the Valley. Everyone recruits everyone door to door. And the worst part about sales is there's so many like fakes out there. There's so many people who want to tell you how to go make all the money that have never done it. And there's so many people that'll tell you go bet on yourself, but then they'll go put you into a system that even if you're the hardest worker, it's probably not going to work out. It's a really weird thing in Utah Valley, especially. It's like hyper saturated with door to door, especially, and has been for 20 years, or maybe it just got saturated the last 10 years. But it's so true. It's like, it doesn't matter what the opportunity is or the title or the product, even actually. It's literally, you just go, and if you're willing to bet on yourself and you find a good machine to plug in, you can go set your own ceiling. And the reason, why do you think it deters so many people? Why do you think, because obviously me and you jive on this and we click on this of like, yeah, duh. I'm not gonna go be hired hourly anywhere. I'm either gonna go create a business where the revenue that it makes, I take a piece of, or I'm gonna go create revenue for a really big business and they only pay me when I do that, but they don't put a limit on it. Why would everyone not do that? Like,
It's a great question. Fear. A lot of human, we talked a couple times here, you brought up human nature. I think human nature for people, for most people, they want comfort. They want stability. They want certainty. And look, the reality is in sales, you can get to a point where you have all that. Like, I'm certain I'm going to go sell X, Y, Z.
Yep.
And I'm comfortable even in the famine times of the mortgage world. I'm comfortable, but I wasn't always. I had many, many sleepless nights thinking this whole thing could implode from under me. All my friends are out jobs. I'm out tons of money. But I just didn't let that fear get in the way. So I just think not everybody's cut from the same cloth.
Yeah.
And your job, my job, we go out there and find those people that are.
Mhm.
And what's really cool is when you find someone who never thought it was possible. Their parents were W-2 wage earners their whole life. They grew up just like, everybody else. And so they're skeptical, but you or I do our job and we sell this vision to them. And then they get a taste, dude, that changes. I've loved changing so many people's lives.
Yep.
And one other thing before I forget that you touched on that, I mean, you know a lot for how young you are, is there's nothing worse than going and working for someone who's trying to tell you, like, I couldn't promise these guys they could make 40 grand in a month or sell 30 loans if I hadn't done it.
Mhm.
Number one, I'm lying to them, right? Like, I would never tell a guy, oh yeah, you can come in here and make that, or, oh, anybody can close 30 loans a month. I've never in my life promised somebody that they could do something unless I had done it first.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, it's easy to show a paycheck. Like, look, dude, this is what I made last month. But I want to make sure that I'm not asking anybody to do something that I haven't.
So then you can duplicate it, because that's the whole purpose. Like, leadership's another. Sales is a really, really, like, it's a fascinating art form that I got obsessed with. Leadership is one that I'm fully obsessed with right now and trying to figure out and learn. It's the very simple principle of what we're talking about is you can't go help someone be any better than you've been. Like, you can only help someone to the point that you are or you have been. And there's way too many people trying to go and lead people where it's like, dude, you got to go figure it out for yourself first. And like, that's one of the most interesting things in my industry. Even people with the best intentions, the best work ethic, the best everything, it's like, they're like, hey, I've got these recruits, because anyone can recruit and there's benefit if you go build a team in my industry. And they're like, hey, I've got these recruits, like, I really want to make sure I'm a good leader to them. And like, there's a few this year even where they're total studs, but it's like their second year doing this. And my advice every time is like, the best thing you can do for your recruits is think about, focus on, worry about, and work on you, and let the managers of the office worry about them. They're going to either put in the work or not, but if they go see you crushing, then you can go help them. Then they're going to go through the same journey you went through your first year. And people kind of jump the gun on leadership. It's the first person you have to lead is you. Otherwise, you're not a good leader as much as you care. And that's the hard part, is so many people think caring makes you a good leader. No. You do have to care to be a good leader, but you have to lead yourself before anyone else to be a good leader. And it's really interesting. And I love the parallels. So your dad has this conversation with you. You have this. It sounds like Will is, like you said, visionary. Like, he's like the artist and you're the entrepreneur.
Yeah.
He's got this idea and you're like, okay, let's go scale it.
Yeah.
And you have this conversation that pushes you past the line of like, okay, we got to freaking do it. Let's
get out of the basement.
Let's get out of the basement. Let's hang the wakeboard up. Let's only go on the weekends. Like, let's do this thing. How did that go materialize, and what was that journey like? And what time period is? I don't want to date you.
No, you're fine.
You are the most eligible bachelor in the Valley. Bucket.
Come on, ladies.
Sure
That's
I'm
me.
the most eligible bachelor. Not a day over 30, but let's say you were. When was all this happening?
Yes, good point. This would have happened about 2001.
Okay.
Yep. So about a year out of college, and we were talking a little bit about the interest world or the mortgage world earlier. Alan Greenspan was like the chairman of the Federal Reserve at the time, and the .com bubble had just happened. So all these, billion-dollar companies, which are a dime a dozen, especially in Utah now, but back in the day when a company hit $1 billion, the stock market's going crazy. Well, this all imploded. And when the stock market implodes, it can cause a recession. And so the country's entering a recession in about 2001, and Alan Greenspan just starts cutting rates. So you talk about this feast or famine for like the next 2 or 3 years. Now, if somebody goes and pulls up an interest rate chart, historical interest rate chart, maybe I'm a little wrong, but for about the next 2.5 years, the Fed was cutting rates at every quarterly meeting. Sometimes it got so bad, the economy was so bad that they would cut rates, what's called an inter-meeting rate cut. So it wasn't even scheduled. You'd wake up one morning and the Fed had cut rates overnight. Well, of course, that just completely pushes mortgage rates down. So we were just going crazy, crazy busy from about 2001 to 2003. And I just figured it was always going to be like that. So backing up, we move out of his basement. We go.
I thought you were him. You're like, bro, we got this shit
I didn't know
down
wid
pat.
him was back then. My kids have taught me about him, but I was definitely him. I was definitely him.
I love that.
And yeah, I didn't stop to think, well, it might not always be like that. Things happen to make me realize, it's not always going to be feasting. But you mentioned duplication, which to me has been the key to my success in multiple industries, is I go out and I master it, or at least come as close to mastering it. So I went out and I closed tons of loans. I figured out, all the sales pitches that I was going to use. And if I can do this, I might not be able to find another Eric, but I can find some pretty dang good people that can do really close to what I can do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I start talking to my friends. They see this money I'm making, and I just replicated myself. Here's what I say, guys. Here's how I do it. And I went to Will. I said, hey, you're paying me. I think at the time he was paying me 60% of whatever the revenue on the loan was. I'm like, hey, can you keep paying me 60, even if, Joe and Mike and Steve do it? I'm going to pay them somewhere between 25 to 50. I'll give them a sliding scale to push them to do more.
Mm-hmm.
But I want the spread. He's like, yeah, I don't care. I'm willing to pay out, I'm willing to pay out 60% of whatever you bring in.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, that was another one of those light bulb moments for me where it's like, dude, I just need to build an army of loan officers. So we move into a building. I remember we got our first set of cubicles from the DI because Will had never wanted to spend money. His whole thing is, if I can close 10 loans a month and we have almost no overhead, it's in my basement, there's really no overhead, then we get to keep all the difference.
Mm-hmm.
To your point, I kind of pushed more of it. No, but if we do enough volume, we can afford to spend some money.
Mm-hmm.
But we did get these nasty pink. They must have been in some grandma's that we went and bought Febreze because it smelled like stanky cat and who knows what else. And nobody wanted to work in these cubicles, so we sprayed them down and we just kind of screwed them together, and we had our first official office. Man, it was great. You'd walk in, people sitting at desks, phones were ringing, and I know we don't have tons of time, but it's not like it happened overnight. Remember, this is 2001. We're a small little mortgage broker. Most of your audience probably knows the difference between like a broker and a banker, but the broker's not using their own money. They're putting the paperwork together, and it's maybe like selling an ADT system or something. So anyhow,
they're selling a contract and then selling that contract off to the bigger company.
That's what we did for them in the mortgage world, right? We were selling these mortgage contracts, and we would get a fee. It wasn't until about 2011. This isn't the fun part of business, but it's the real part of life. So Will and I, best friends at each other's weddings. He's, taught me most of what got me to a financial point of freedom in my life. Fast forward 10 or 11 years, we're in a lawsuit. We're not talking to each other.
With each other.
Sucks. Avoid lawsuits at all costs. I remember calling up my buddy Jeremy. He's a business guy in here in Utah, so I won't say his last name for now, but I'm asking him for advice. I'm like, dude, this sucks, but I'm owed all this money. I haven't been paid all these commissions. And I'll go down this path, but I have nothing but love and respect for Will. All of the animosity when he passed away, it was gone in a moment's time. But this is important for your listeners to understand. At the time, I'm like, hey, he owes me money. I didn't stop to think maybe he has a different understanding of what happened than I did, but I just wanted my money. I worked hard for my money. I needed my money. So I called Jeremy and say, hey, I think I got to sue this guy. And I remember Jeremy telling me, okay, so two things. Eric, number one, I don't care if you're right. Whoever has the better attorney will win. Now, if you are right and you have the better attorney, even better.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to give you the biggest, baddest bulldog attorney in Utah, and you need to call him. He goes, and number two, you're going to wish that you hadn't gone into litigation, but you can consider it your Harvard education. Jeremy had gone to Harvard. And I go, what are you talking about, Harvard education? He goes, you're going to spend more money on this lawsuit than I did going to Harvard, but you'll learn never to go into litigation ever again. And every single one of those things happened. I didn't get what I was owed. I spent way more on attorneys than I ever wanted to. And I will not ever go in. I will figure out a way to make things right without litigating. So there's a side story that's not super fun, but
I wish I would have had you on my freaking podcast 2 years ago.
Did you get in a lawsuit?
Multiple, actually, believe it or not, which I'm a little too young to have. One of them kind of unavoidable. Can't talk about that. It's in pens down. It'll be all right. The other one was me kind of instigating it, where I had paid someone for work that I didn't feel like got done, and I wasn't getting responses from them. So I got kind of loud on social media and other ways, which was just dumb. I should have dropped it and counted that money as like lost money. And then they sued me for defamation, or tried to sue me for defamation, and they would never win that lawsuit, in my opinion. And I think they knew that as well. But I think they also knew at the time I was 23, and I'm like, yeah, I'll get a lawyer. Got a lawyer, and then 50 grand later, I was like, I had to call some of my friends that are influential to call them to just ask them to stop, and it worked out, thank goodness. But I'm like, dude, I spent more. It's a landscaping situation. I spent more on that yard than multi-million-dollar homes if you count the lawyer fees.
That
so
sucks. Yeah, the lawyer always wins.
The lawyer always wins.
Always.
And yeah, I've had some depositions. Depositions aren't fun. Those are horrible. Anything you can do to avoid any type of lawsuit, just do it.
Yeah,
it's
for sure.
Unless you're a lawyer, then get in as many as you can. Yeah, I wish you would have been here 2 years ago, 3 years ago. That's what I wish.
Hopefully you'll get a nugget that'll help you 3 years from now or whatever. But nonetheless, I became a banker.
Okay.
That's when things took off. So why did I become a banker? Oh, and you also talked about catalysts. I was comfortable working for someone else. I was kind of like a branch or a franchise.
Yeah.
So I've considered myself working for myself well before this lawsuit in this pivotal point in my financial life, because the more loans I closed, the more Will paid me. But he was still keeping a very decent portion of the pie. But until I wasn't being paid, which was what caused the lawsuit, I didn't really have a reason to take any more risk.
Yeah.
I wasn't at the time, and probably still a huge risk taker. And I would have possibly still worked for him indefinitely because I was making really good money.
Yeah.
Enter the lawsuit. By the way, tragically, he passed away, about 2 years into this lawsuit. And like I said, when I got the phone call, I knew the lawsuit was over.
Yeah.
Right. Like I'm not doing this. And it was a blessing in disguise that he hadn't paid me. Again, my opinion. He would probably have a different opinion, because it forced me to resign from that company and go start my own thing. And now I could continue to do what I was doing, but I could also do it 100% my way, the way I wanted to. And my company started to really grow. Will never wanted to not be a broker. I became a banker, which ultimately meant we went out and got, massive lines of credit from these.
The scalability just went way up.
Way up. And now all the money was mine, right?
Mm-hmm.
Again, way more overhead, but the volume just skyrocketed. And then I don't know how much more we want to talk about mortgages other than some of the questions you have. The game changer for me was COVID. COVID pushed interest rates, as you know, down into the twos. I mean, 30-year fixed mortgages, when you can tell someone that you can get them 2.25% with like no points, we could not slow the train down.
Yeah.
No matter what we did, we couldn't send people away.
Yeah.
And so at that point, our pain points were, how do we hire? And because now you can't just get somebody in a bathing suit off the lake and give them a script. That died years ago with the housing collapse. You have to have decent credit. You can't have any, negative background on your criminal history.
Yep.
You've got to take tests. And by the way, we were a national lender. We were in 48 states, so it wasn't enough just to go get licensed in Utah. My loan officers had to go get licensed in all these states. So it was a huge lift. But to your point, I was able to scale it. Definitely, I need to correct that. Not I. I had such a good team of people. That's another thing I learned. I remember my wife at the time, my kids, we were taking a vacation in Hawaii and we chartered this catamaran or something. And I remember at the time I'm on my cell phone as we're leaving the port and it's this all day thing, beautiful Maui, whatever. And we come back, sun is setting. And I remember saying to my wife at the time, I said, wait, we're done. We're already back. And she's Eric, you've been on your phone for 8 hours or however long it was.
Mm-hmm.
And something, again, it was another one of those aha moments where I said, holy crap. Like, I love that I'm making all this money. I love that I'm employing all these people and life is great. I'm out here in Hawaii on this, but I kind of just missed an opportunity to really connect with my family.
Mm-hmm.
Problem is, I had a real hard time ever wanting to delegate. Remember all these stories I've told you, a little bit too much ego. In my head, I'm thinking, yeah, there's great people out there, but they're not as good as me.
Yeah.
And so I was juggling processing hat, underwriting hat, sales guy hat. And the thing is, I'm a salesman. I'm not an operational guy, but I did not know how to delegate. And I remember after that like statement, I came home and I said, if this company is going to really grow, I have to find other experts. And there's a guy, he still works for me to this day. His name's Casey Smalley. He's the furthest thing from a salesman. He wasn't the type of person I was used to hiring, but he came so highly recommended by people in the industry as a right-hand man, as a key person to help build out your processes. Probably my single most important hire. I mean, we're dead right now, and I'll never let the guy go. He's that good. And that's that's one of maybe 2 or 3 real key hires. And I realized, oh, I'm not the best.
Mm-hmm.
I really am. There are better people out there than me. And so now everything I'm doing in life from a handful of years ago forward, I now invest more in the people than the product or the service. Like, I'm betting on people. If you get the right people, you can accomplish a ton of good things. And there's so many better people out there than me.
Mm-hmm.
I now realize, but it took maturing and it took life and it took that sort of stuff happening before I realized to really scale a company, you got to build a great team. So
Totally.
I didn't build a great mortgage company. Me and a lot of really good people built a machine, man. It's been great.
Yeah. No, it's wild. And part of the fascinating, well, actually, there's a few things to touch on there and unpack there. First and foremost, like, so what advice do you have when it comes to delegating? That's one thing I really, really struggled with. And it's part of it could be ego. The other part is like I have a very like, controlling side of like the details. Like I'll go like hyper obsess over details that really probably aren't that big of a deal.
Totally.
But to me, it feels like a big deal. When you start delegating, like, what are your rules of delegation? Like, at what point is like, okay, this is something I need to let someone else handle? And then also, what if you don't have that freaking all-star player that can go fill that role? Have you ran into that? And when you do, what do you do there?
Yeah. So again, for me, it was kind of out of necessity. So whether or not I'm going to give you, I'll give you the best answer I can. I did not know that Casey was going to be the guy. Matter of fact, I'm a control freak too. I'm way less controlling over the last 3 years than I had been just because of some life stuff. But I remember when I hired Casey, he had to sit in my office. I said, dude, all you're going to do for the next like 3 months is mirror me. If somebody comes in and asks me if they can get a drink of water, I want you to see how I answer their question. And he, his eyes were like, I got to sit in your office. And literally, I said, if you're going to be an extension of me, I need you to see every single thing I do. So first of all, I wanted him to be as good as me. Struggling to answer your question as far as how did I know? I didn't know. If he had not been able to do the things that I needed him to do, I suppose I would have just gotten rid of him and tried again to find somebody else. So perhaps it was luck. I got the right person. He did come highly, like I said, highly recommended. I was reaching out to people all throughout the mortgage industry that I respected and valued. And I said, guys, this is exactly what I need. Someone to take 80% what I'm doing during the day off my plate and that can handle it. And his name consistently just kind of came up. So I would reach out to people in your industry that you
do your due diligence.
Respect to your due diligence. I've hired tons of people over my career that didn't end up being the right person.
Yeah.
At least I put them in the wrong seat. There's the whole idea is, are you the right person, the right seat at the right time? That's the ultimate thing. Find the right person, put them in the right seat and do it at the right time. If all 3 of those line up, which is likely what happened with Casey, you're solid. Sometimes you might find the right person and you'll realize, like, I'm betting on this guy. I know he's amazing, or this girl, I know she's amazing. I think maybe I put them in the wrong seat. Is there somewhere else I can find at my company where they will be beneficial? I just happen to put them in the wrong spot. And I think a lot of business is just trial and error. I
Yeah.
mean, you've already mentioned a handful of things that, I wish I would have known this 2 or 3 years ago. And here you are at 26, and now you've got that. You're going to have 15 to 20 more situations like that where you're doing something that you think is right, or you hired someone that you think is right. And then if they're not, and then
Yeah.
you got to replace them.
No, I love that. I think that's really, really good. So, what would you say, as I want to tackle things in like categories, and then the last little bit of your life dive into if you're
Sure.
open to it, just like to get you to where you're currently at, and then the game plan going forward as well. But as we're on like this leadership, because a big part of you going and building this team that you built and executing the way you guys executed was leadership. And I think
Totally.
most of the reason I bring this part so much, not only because I'm fascinated by it, most of the listeners, like, this is the kind of stuff
Okay.
they want to go get out of these things. What are the key principles of being a leader that's worth following? And what's a leader that, like, let's say your son came to you and they're like, "Hey dad, I want to like go follow this person." Like, what's the list? Like, what are the things that are the top of the priority list and the way down that are like, these are non-negotiables
Yeah.
for a leader?
First thing that's coming to my mind is you got to be able to walk the walk. There's so many wannabe leaders out there, especially with social media and influence, all this stuff. It's like, dude, you have not even done half of what you're trying to tell me to go do. So people can smell that out quickly. I mean, you can throw up, mirrors and smoke to hire somebody, but very quickly, people know if they're working for a fake. And I've probably hired over 500 people. We keep talking about Bucket, and it's awesome that he thinks I'm so great. There's a lot of great people out there. I think if you were to ask him, or if he were here, why so many people valued me as a leader and were loyal, sometimes to a fault. Like, guys, it's time for you to leave. We're not doing much anymore. Just people knew that I never, ever, ever asked them to do something that I hadn't already done, or that I would not also do. So just walk the walk if you're a leader. Treat people with respect. I mean, I'm friends with almost everybody I work with, even people I have nothing in common with. Like, they like being around me. When I think of people that have been leaders in my life, first and foremost, I respect them. Doesn't mean I respect them because they have tons of money, or I respect them because this is just, I like being around them. Nobody wants to work for a jackass.
Yep.
Like, they just don't. And there's a lot of them out there like that. And they think, oh yeah, but I drive this nice car and I can pay you all this money. Money only goes so far, right? At some point, people are like, well, I'll go make money for somebody else that I actually respect. So
Yeah.
walk the walk, earn their respect. I try to also, I'm assuming in your industry, a lot of the people you hire are men,
Mhm.
guys. That was the same way in the loan world. And I tried to go out of my way all the time at like president's clubs or like events to not just give all the accolades to the door knocker or the loan officer, but I'm looking here at wives, sometimes pregnant with a stroller over here, and they're coming across the country to go to, Mexico on a president's club, and always took the time to also say, hey, you know what, wives, or in some cases, husbands, spouses, like, you're just as much part of this company's success as this loan officer. I'm putting the gold medal over.
Yeah.
Because, for example, I got a top loan officer for years. His name's Jaron. Think of how many nights his wife had to handle the kids by herself, tuck them in because he was at the office till 9:00 at night because the phones were ringing.
Yep.
And I think, just making sure that the support system at home also feels valued and appreciated goes a long way, because you could have one of the most killer salesmen in the world, and if he's walking around on eggshells, like, dude, I got to get home, like my wife's going to kill me, or doesn't matter how great of a salesman he is, he's no longer on the phone or on the porch or whatever you guys call it in the alarm industry. So I don't know, I could probably go on and on, but those would be my top 3, right? Walk the walk, earn their respect, and be grateful.
Yeah.
There was a time in my life where I thought, hey, you guys should be grateful for me because I just signed your $10,000 paycheck. Never like an arrogant prick. I was never like that. But in the back of my head, I'm like, why do I need to give them accolades and tell them thank you? The paycheck should be thanks enough.
Yeah.
it took some maturing for me to realize, yeah, money, people appreciate it, but in their mind, they earned it. Like, you should be thanking them for writing that check, because look at the house you're in. Look at the vacation you just took. And it took me a while.
Yeah.
If you can learn that, early on, people want to be appreciated.
Yeah.
And not just because you signed a big old paycheck.
Yeah. They want to know you care.
Yeah.
Yep. I love
Better
that.
way to put it. Thank you.
No, I love that. That's gold. So then as you get to the mortgage world is very different from what it was when it was booming. Would you say right now is one of those times of famine, or what's
famine? If I could shut it down, I would shut it down. But I've got some leases that are out there that I got to comply with, and some software agreements. So that's not to say that the next generation of mortgage people aren't going to kill it. Mortgages aren't going away.
Yeah,
but they're definitely hibernating. You got to understand, like right now, interest rates are probably in the mid 6s, and most of my career, we've been, below 4%, and for quite a few years in the low 3s. So, the mortgage world will come back. The mortgage world will come back.
Yeah.
But it's interesting times right now when all these Trump tariffs and stuff were starting to happen. I'm kind of like licking my chops, thinking, okay, this is going to cause a recession. I don't care if you're a Trump fan or not a Trump fan. Like, I'm always, as a mortgage guy, what's crazy is I'm always cheering for the world to be in chaos. COVID was great. The housing collapse was great. This is going to be crazy to say, but when the Twin Towers came down, probably well before your time, I don't know. And then we went to a war in the Middle East. People in the mortgage world were like, dude, this is freaking awesome. The casualties aren't awesome, but anytime there's uncertainty in the economy, one of the first things the country can do to try and bring back some certainty is they cut interest rates, because it's cheaper to borrow money. Businesses can expand with cheap money. Homeowners can do more with cheap money.
Yeah.
So here we are going into these tariffs, and I'm thinking, here we go, baby. Let's get back. One more hoorah before my youngest is on the way to college, and let's build this boiler room back up.
Yeah.
And then it went like the other way. It's like, what? The bond market's not performing well. So I don't know what's happening right now. I am not like a economist guru, but interest rates have been high for about the last 3 years. If history repeats itself, somewhere in the next 6 to 18 months, I think we're going to see, some Fed rate cuts. And if your viewers don't know, the whole reason interest rates went up, well, we had all this inflation because it was so cheap of money during COVID.
Money just getting printed.
PPP loans, ERC credits, money was free.
Yep.
And so everything, as there's free money, people are spending more. So prices go up. There's inflation. The Fed does the inverse when there's inflation and things are way too hot and heavy. They raise interest rates to kind of slow the spending down. And they've did that for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
Now they're a pause. So what's coming next? I would assume interest rate cuts. Just don't know when.
Yeah. It's so
You're never going to see a lower rate than what you've got right now, though. If I was a betting man and someone's like, oh, Eric, do you think we're ever going to get down below, 2.5? No.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
I am very, very grateful because I see houses. I love my house. I'm so grateful for it. So as everything, I mean, it's a roller coaster. Mortgages are probably a roller coaster where whenever the Fed goes and pushes that button, it's like, it just changes your whole world.
Totally.
So how did you go and hedge your bet against that? Where it's like, hey, I'm going to make sure that when it is famine time, I'm good. Cause like you're doing great. You're doing fine. It seems like, and then what's like transpired since that time when things were booming? Then they like, what's the last 6 years look like for you?
Perfect. 2025. So 2020 and 2021, like I told you with COVID, it was manna from heaven, man. It was, we could not slow the printing press of cash down. It was great. 2023, 24, most of 2022 has been the inverse. We went from probably 500 employees on payroll to I might have 5 now. So when you want to talk about famine, it's famine. So, but to answer your question, what did I do? Well before 2020, before COVID, I mean, I was making a good amount of money. I had a successful career, and I grew up reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Okay. One of the first books I remember reading was the Multiple Streams of Income. And I knew even if mortgages didn't slow down, I don't want to just be like the mortgage guy. So I got into real estate, back in the day. I bought 4 or 5 BYU student rentals that I held for 20 years. Those made me some money. There were some tax benefits to that. So, diversification is what helped me get through, those famine times. I mentioned my buddy Kevin. He quit the Ensign Group, moved to Florida, said, dude, if you give me the money to start these nursing homes in Orlando, I'll get all your money paid back before I start taking my money. And that started producing income. I mean, I bet on him. Kevin was a guy, it didn't matter to me if he was going to sell watermelons on the sidewalk or if he was going to do nursing homes. I knew Kevin would be successful, and I invested in him, and he invested in me in a sense, took some risk with me. He moved his entire family across the country. So in those times of famine, because I had learned, oh, I don't want all my eggs in one basket, I was okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't, walking up to the teller looking like big bad, big dog. But behind the scenes, I didn't have to worry too much.
Yeah.
And then, everybody kind of has their pivotal, I shouldn't say everybody, but most business guys will have their exit. There's been no exit in the mortgage world. My mortgage company can go from being worth multiple tens of millions of dollars when our pipeline is just cranking to, why would I want to buy you today? You guys are losing money.
Yeah.
So there's not like an exit event in the mortgage world. But what there was multiple years of just massive amounts of cash flow. And what you're able to do with that, if you're smart, in my opinion, is go put that money into other income producing assets. And for me, a lot of times that was businesses where I was investing in someone that I knew was going to produce
People.
a good outcome. Yeah, I much more invest in people. As a matter of fact, something that I'm really focused on right now is Medicare. It's a whole, and I have no background in Medicare. Talk about an amazing opportunity. Is just, there's 11,000 people a day turning 65. The government's not going to get rid of Medicare in my lifetime, I don't believe. And so the picking is the field is huge right now for that. But I know nothing about Medicare. But one of my really good, if not best friends out there, he's involved in it at the top end. And when they were looking for capital, it's like, that's fine. I don't care if it's Medicare or solar panels, whatever. I'm investing in you, Matt, and this team that you have. And it could end up being something that makes my mortgage, career look like nothing. I mean, that's how awesome this Medicare stuff looks.
It's amazing. I
Just
love
diversify.
That. Yeah. Yeah.
Don't have all your eggs in one basket.
Get uncorrelated. Make sure when one thing zigs, other things will zag.
Absolutely.
All at once. I love that. So, dude, I'm like honored to get to know you. I'm stoked to get to know you. Again, Bucket loves you, and Bucket is one of few people where I very, very, very deeply trust his judge of character, and you've been awesome.
Well, thank you.
And I wish we could talk literally all day, but we can't. So I'll keep it limited. I do have probably two more questions for you. A little bit, not to go and deviate, but your story is amazing, and I love it, and I feel like you have a lot of experience to speak from, and that's why I ask the questions. My first question for you, and then I'll wrap it up right after. My first question for you, though, is you've got, how old are your kids again?
19, 18, and 14.
So like right there coming into adulthood, which is a really, really, it's an interesting and exciting and amazing, however you view it, time to go become an adult right now.
Yeah.
It's crazy. What's one thing you would go and say if you could, because maybe your kids won't listen to you because you're their dad, which I assume you're the cool dad, so they probably listen to you.
I try to be.
They probably listen to you. But to anyone else where they're like coming into, or maybe they're early 20s or they're in college, they're trying to figure it out, and they're trying to just go through that passage from I'm a teenager that's fully dependent on someone to I'm an independent. What's a piece of advice just going into life to carry through life if you could leave one with everyone?
Wow. Going deep.
Deep, quick.
Yeah, one.
Deep and quick.
I'll probably give you two answers. Number one,
Please.
Don't grow up too fast. I mean, I know you and I are we have different ages, but I see so many kids now because of social media. Like, I got to be rich tomorrow. I gotta be six. It's just this society of instant. Everything's instant. I mean, literally, I needed Cards Against Humanity to take down to this home in Mexico for a trip we're going on. I ordered it yesterday at like 3:00 in the afternoon. The dang cards were on my porch at like 6:00 yesterday evening. Everything's instant. So kids, teenagers, have goals, have ambition, but you've got the rest of your life to like work. I see way too many kids trying to keep up with the Joneses way too quickly. And one day, we all, our parents say, one day when you're my age, you'll understand. I'm telling you, I'm now in that position in life where one day, the younger generation will understand, like, you don't have to grow up too fast. So that's number one. Number two, which I think is probably a little bit more what you're looking for, it still comes back to this hard work. When anyone in my life that has been successful, again, financially successful, spiritually successful, if that's what you're after, emotionally successful, physically successful. The most successful people outwork the masses. My buddy Matt, who I've mentioned a few times, he goes, "Look, we weren't created to be average and ordinary. Like, we were created to be amazing." And the most amazing people in whatever field they're in, they just always seem to have it. And it goes right back to that conversation we had at the beginning. It is not just something that's up until this podcast with you. I was thinking, oh, you can't really put a name on it. No, I actually can. It's people with it just work hard. So for the youth out there, if it's school that you're in right now, then study, get up, work hard. If you're trying to be some sort of fitness influencer, get to the gym, eat healthy, work hard. If you want a successful romantic relationship, put in the time. Yet, dude, I never read, marital books or parenting books and stuff. And I think I'm a killer dad. For many, many years, I had a killer relationship. I don't know if we'll get into that with your last question or not. But, areas where maybe I didn't work as hard as I wish I would have, work hard. If you want to accomplish something, work hard.
I love it. No, I think that's cool. I love your first answer too. I really, really like your first answer because especially the type of young adults that listen to podcasts are probably the ones who are consumed by the culture of like, you need to be successful tomorrow, which it's just simply not true. And like, I definitely haven't made it, but I've realized once you go make a certain amount of money, in my experience, like your lifestyle stops increasing. And it's like investing's pretty cool when you're young and it's like fun and exciting to like say you do it at a young age. It doesn't make life any more fun. Like I had just as much fun in high school, dead broke, like eating the leftovers because I couldn't afford to buy lunch, but I didn't want to eat school lunch, so I'd go out to lunch anyways. Like that's the funnest times ever. So I think it's phenomenal advice. And the second piece I think is golden. Like it is the it. Just work hard, don't quit. Like whatever it is that you want to go and do. And there's also no one can really tell you what you want to do. It's whatever you go choose to apply it to, whether it's school. A lot of people hate on school too. I'm glad you brought up school. It's like the silliest thing of like the pendulum just swings so far every way. Like my parents' perspective was college is the only way to go be successful because that was kind of the time of life. And now it's like, if you go to college, you're an idiot. It's a waste of time. And it's like, no, I don't really know if either of those are the correct view at all. But whatever you're doing, just apply yourself, work, and don't quit, whatever it is. And I love that you brought that up. So my last question.
Before you get your last question,
yeah, please.
I don't know if this is abnormal or not, but you just said something as a dad who has kids that are only, 4 or 5 years behind you, 5 or 6 years behind you. You just said something that struck with me, and it was, and I don't know how much money you've made, but I know from talking to Bucket that you've been successful, and I'm sure the sky's the limit since you've got started at such a young age. But in the event that my kids want this fast success and probably have this culture of I want money, they've grown up kind of with the silver spoon. You said, which just was kind of took me back, I was having just as much fun eating ramen or leftovers. What has the money that you've made, if it hasn't brought additional fun, what has it brought?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. There was a phase, I don't want to get it twisted because I'm a very money motivated person. And there was a phase where like to get to that level, like, okay, I can drive a nice car. Like to me, that was a big thing, or I can own a house and I'm in my early 20s. Like it was a significance thing, but also a security thing for me. Like once I got the sense of security though, and I was like, okay, I'm good, more than good. Even if everything went wrong, I'm more than good right now. And I could live with the money that I have for the next 5 years if I didn't make $1 with the lifestyle I have. And once I kind of got to this point of like, okay, my lifestyle, and I'm still like pretty damn frugal for most people in my position.
Which is super good.
Kind of. And sometimes I'm like, oh, dude, they just bought the brand new Porsche. And then I'm looking at cars that it's just stupid. But what I will say is once I got to that point, it kind of like the money motivation didn't go away, but it was a different like driving force like I brought up before. One thing I've learned is and it was because I realized it with my mentor. We talked about Casey Baugh a little bit. Casey Baugh immediately had all of my attention, all of my respect, and was my mentor before he knew I was my mentor because he drove a Porsche, his wife drove a G-Wagon, he lived in a nice house, he was young, all that. And what I've learned is it's like as I go and I climb ranks in any financial realm, what I actually get out of it, me now, is now I have the credibility to go and actually impact people that's like the whole point to me is like, especially young gentlemen, young ladies, like people that are in that transition from I'm a kid and I'm fully dependent to now I got to go figure this shit out. Like I can go and be a voice they'll listen to. And I've realized like they probably wouldn't if I was broke.
Yeah.
And it's not because I'm not cool and it's not because I'm not like, but it's like, no, money's a really weird thing. And especially for someone who grew up like I did, where it was kind of absent, it's like it earns people's respect pretty quick. And it's not how you should earn people's respect. And it's not, but it'll get them in the door.
Sure.
And then they'll stick around. Because if they come in the door for that reason, and then you're a piece of shit, they're gone. And like you said,
Yeah.
you can put up smoke and mirrors when you hire someone, but they're not going to stick around for 5 years. Right. But a lot of 18-year-olds and 19-year-olds and 20-year-olds, it doesn't matter how good of a person you are. If you don't live a desirable lifestyle or have a desired outcome of theirs, they won't even come in the door. But once they come in the door, then you get to go and work the magic. Then you actually have influence and you can go be like, look, man, this is what's actually important. I know like it's our industry. I know you came into the industry to go and make really good money. And I'm glad that got you here. You're going to go and learn. The reason you go do a summer, the reason you go knock doors is because of what you're going to learn, who you're going to meet, the network you're going to make, and the skill sets you'll have after. And then if you stick around for the money, awesome. But that's why you're gonna realize that's the actual benefit. But a lot of people would never come through that threshold if the money wasn't a piece. But that's what I'd say. And then the other thing is like money gives you an opportunity to go have a really, really big impact, not only influentially, but just in general. There's nothing cooler than someone needing help and like not even having to stress about being able to helping them and not even thinking about it ever again other than good thoughts.
Yep.
Like a family member really struggling, you're able to go put $5,000 cash on their doorstep and they don't know it's you. No one knows it's you. You never have to worry about the $5,000 again. You don't have to think about it, but you get to know like, okay, that was really cool for me. Like that'll give you more benefit than anything you're going to go buy with the $5,000.
Totally.
Like, and that's what I would say is
Awesome.
I'm not the best at it, but I've definitely had good examples of it with Casey and Todd. The whole point of money is so you can go give it away.
Yeah.
Enjoy it for whatever extent you want to enjoy it for sure. But like, make sure you intentionally go and give it away because it'll pay you back 10 times more. And that's what I would say. That's what I would say, especially for younger people. It's what gets people past the threshold of freaking listening to you if you're not just spouting out really sexy, attractive things.
Yeah. Because
if you lead with, and it's probably the salesman in me, if you lead with the really like wholesome, true approach to life to a 19-year-old right now, probably
they're not interested.
But if you lead with something that's actually sexy and attractive, and then the second they're in the door, you're like, all right, now we're going to get to the real stuff, and this is what's important, they're going to listen. Does that make sense?
Oh, totally.
That's what I
Love
would say.
It. Cool.
That's what I would say. So my last question for you. And I'm going to make sure you get out of here on time.
I'm good.
The title of the podcast is Today's the Day. And it's like my favorite phrase, has been since I was 15, 16. And it's like morphed as time's gone on, but we chose to name the podcast Today's the Day because it was kind of a term that I coined and I love it. But to me, what it meant, and I always used to write it down, is yesterday already happened. I'm a big stress ball. And I went through depression for a little bit, and depression lives in the past. Anxiety lives in the future. So yesterday already happened. Tomorrow might not even happen. If you're lucky, it will. So today is kind of all you've got. Like today's the day. And a big part of like my favorite interviews are people who go embody that day in, day out. And I've had some really, really good examples of it. And so far talking with you, it's like you're fully present. The stories you tell, how you like look at things introspectively. What would your advice be to someone to go and live like either supporting the idea that today's the day and all you've got's right now, or even like, hey, this is how I stay present and this is how I live like today's the day. And maybe I haven't in the past. What would you say? Just touching on it in any way you want to.
No, for sure. Number one, we got a lot in common. This whole idea of anxiety or depression, worrying about everything and staying present has not been something. Staying present in the moment and having fun when everything's going great, yes. That's why all my college stories and my early business stories, dude, I loved it. And I love life. But about 3 years ago, my marriage started to kind of, hit the rocks. And it shook the crap out of me. I was not prepared for that. Never understood mental illness, never understood depression. I've had people in my life that have struggled with it, and I would tell them, raise the blinds, turn on some music, hit the gym, change your diet. Like you're depressed because you're laying around.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, a couple of years ago, the Eric that you guys have met today on the podcast, I'm laying in bed at 11 a.m. with my blinds down. I don't want to do anything.
Yeah.
I have no desire to do anything. And it clicks. It's like, oh, that's what people that struggle with this all the time must feel like. You can't just fix that. You can't just get up. And so my empathy for people that have struggled with, depression and anxiety, I look at it so much differently now. And becoming present and letting go, I think those are two in the same. I never read books other than the, money books. The last 2 years, I've listened to more podcasts and more audio or, audible books on letting go and, staying present. And it was a very hard thing for me. But I got there. I think I got there, knock on wood. I'm sure there'll be other things in my life that I'm going to have to get through. But for me, I guess staying present means letting go. You and I and most business guys, we're control freaks. I've been able to fix everything in my life. If I didn't have good salesmen, I trained them better or I got rid of them. If, there was always a solution to every problem until my marriage and the change in my marriage, I couldn't control it and I couldn't control her. And it freaking rocked me because I've always been able to find the solution. And it took a while, but I finally got to the point where I was able just to say, you know what? All I can worry about is today. All I can worry about is myself. And I can't control anyone. I can't control my kids. I can't control you. I can't control my ex-wife. Can't control anyone else. But what I can control is myself. So I bought a sauna. They're not paying me. I'm going to plug them. New Primitive. I think it's a Utah company.
Yeah, we know
bought
New
their
Primitive.
saunas. I get in there every day. It's hard for people like me to shut my brain off. So I'll turn on a speaker and I'll listen to some, I don't know, I like this guy named Trevor Hall, and I'll just kind of like vibe out. And as soon as I find my mind going to the past and worrying about, wow, how come my marriage failed? Or why didn't I do this or that? Come back to the breathing. I used to think this stuff was all hokey pokey. Like, we're going to talk about mindfulness and meditation. That's for a bunch of weirdos. It works. It works for me. It's not a quick fix. That, and then the last thing, still don't know if I'm answering your question, but man, a good group of male, in my opinion, females for themselves, but a good group of like male friends that you can get vulnerable with and talk about the deep stuff, not the money, but the problems. People, again, like you, me, and your viewers, it sucks to be like, dude, I'm in pain. Or it sucks to say that until you've said it. And then you're like, oh, wait, you've had this pain too, or you have a different pain. And so I've just become a lot softer, a lot more aware that everybody's got, you talk about Casey and Todd, these guys don't have any problems, right? No, they've also got problems. We don't need to know what they are necessarily, but everybody's dealing with something. And that reality made me realize when people are walking, like, we're all just doing the best we can. And if I'm having a crappy day today, that's okay. But I don't need to control what's going on. I just kind of deal with it. And I don't know. I'm rambling.
That. No,
this
dude,
has been awesome, man.
No, I think, thank you. I think you answered the question perfectly. Like the idea of today's the day, it's the equivalent of letting go, and not only letting go of whatever's happened, but also the control of what you want to have happen.
The expectation.
Yeah, letting go of both. I really like that a lot. And I also love coming from people like you that are 30 years old, right?
32.
They're 32 years old. No, like weathered, full on, like you're like a full on adult, and like you are the perfect like poster child for the people where, I mean, dude, you're shredded, your jacket's like where I could see the mindset of like, dude, this is how you fix depression or whatever. But to hear that type of stuff from people like you is incredibly powerful. Like the woo-woo stuff is actually real.
Yeah.
You hear that from a really woo-woo person, it's like, okay, yeah, bro, like you look like you do weird stuff on the weekend. I don't want to hear that from you, but it's really valuable. So I just applaud you. I appreciate you coming on. This has been a blast. We'll for sure circle back up as time goes on.
I'd love to see what you're doing 5 years from now. Or 2 years from now.
Hey, whenever.
Let's go knock some
whenever
doors.
you want, we'll go knock some doors.
I'm
But I appreciate
wake up
you.
Some young kid.
I appreciate you being here big time. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. And as always, everyone, thank you guys for tuning in. Until next time, much love.